So frankly speaking, even 6 months before I started in Georgetown, I thought I was going to study in Kyiv, Ukraine, but then the war broke out in my home country of Ukraine. I had to leave. And throughout all of this very tumultuous process, I ended up in the US. I was calling different admissions offices, and I was able to get in touch with Georgetown saying, hey, I know it's April, but I'm curious if there's still any way for me to apply and try to get in. And Georgetown was one of the few places that was like, yes, we want to help you, we want to support you. So then it was absolutely a dream come true. Being a Ukrainian student during the times of the full-scale war in my country, I decided that one of the most reasonable and important things for me to do is try to carry the torch and do something meaningful for my country while being far away. Being united with Ukrainian students, we started a Ukrainian movement here on campus. My freshman fall, we were able to co-found the Ukrainian Society. We first started off as a small movement here on campus. Later, we were able to grow and invite some guests, some speakers, some activists from the broader DC area. And later on, throughout 3-4 years of our existence, we're now constantly holding nationwide events where we're inviting speakers, activists, political participants from all around the country, either they're Ukrainian or not, to come here, engage in important conversations and discussions. Also, another beautiful thing about Georgetown, and specifically the SFS, it helps you discover the passions that you never even knew about. One of them for me was global markets. One of my favorite things about being a student here in the SFS is that when I'm studying central banking, I don't have to look just at the United States. If I were in Ukraine, I would have to look just at Ukraine. But the beautiful thing here is that I have to make projects at the same time on Peru, New Zealand, Laos, Cambodia, and try to understand how things work on a fundamental level at so many different regions with so many different contexts, which is fascinating. And at the end of the day, it leads to way bigger and deeper insights because we're forced to connect things that seem to not to be working together in the first place. And I love that about the SFS. I would say a good portion of my Georgetown experience was guided by Jesuit values, but specifically the ideas of just caring for others. From my first call ever to Georgetown saying, hey guys, can I still apply? And not hearing on the other end, oh, I'm sorry, we're too busy. But actually saying, hey, tell me about your story. So then later on to taking classes where people care so deeply about the global world, about well-being of people in so many different places all around it. Is also the opportunity to take the knowledge in the SFS and try to look in other directions and see how I can employ it there. One of those things was my philosophy minor. There were 2 classes with Professor Nancy Sherman on ancient ethics that made me realize the importance of just trying to live a good life. Hey, things can be stressful, but it's a big world with a big history, and all you can do is try to care for those around you, try to live a good life, but at the end of the day, it's all never certain. So just be humble and grateful for everything. This past summer at my internship, I was talking to one of the SFS alums who has built a very international career for himself. And he was saying, no matter where you go, and truly after studying here at Georgetown, and specifically in the SFS, you can try to build your career in so many different directions. But you will always have this global international lens of understanding of how things work on so many different levels. So what I truly want to dedicate my life to is looking at things on a systematic level and trying to understand, hey, where are things broken and how can we fix them? Be it actively through public service eventually back home, or through supporting my country from far away, from spreading the word here and trying to ensure that as many people as possible get involved and trying to address very important pressing questions.